You and I have all heard the stereotypes. How NASCAR is just a bunch of dumb rednecks that go fast and turn to the left.
I'm gonna drive and I'm gonna go fast and I'm gonna turn to the left sometimes.
And while that's not true, it is hard to deny that most NASCAR tracks are pretty straightforward, with their circuit being that they just go fast and turn to the left in oval shapes. But unlike the stereotype itself, the reasoning for this design layout is far from stupid. To start with, you have to look at NASCAR being in America. If you live in America, you'll notice that the US has a surplus of many things: obesity, debt, political polarization, and cars zipping around the country with people traveling in them. And in all of these cars, or at least most of them, we Americans drive on the left-hand side of the vehicle. This was introduced by Henry Ford with his Model T in 1908. This allowed the person driving to pull to the side of the road and let the passengers on the right side of the car go off onto the curb. It made it easier for passengers to get in and out of the car. So NASCAR, having raced stock cars, would naturally have this design as well. It would only be practical when it comes to safety too. If you crashed into the outside wall, turning right, well, the driver would be on the left-hand side and it'd be extremely dangerous to hit the wall on the driver's side. Even what we view today as a minor accident by modern NASCAR standards would be lethal with this kind of layout if the cars turned to the right. I mean, think about it. With much less space in less safe cars, lethal and flat-out killing blows would be given to the outside wall and would unfortunately be more common in our sport. So that is one way that you can see why NASCAR does that. But what if NASCAR just said screw it and set all the cars up to the right side bias and put the car's seats on the right side of the car instead of the left side? What is stopping them from turning Talladega Superspeedway into the EA Sports version of Tiburon Superspeedway? It would be unorthodox, that's for sure. It'd be unorthodox in racing in America in general, but it wouldn't really matter, right? Well, not so fast. As odd as it may sound, NASCAR and American racing overall have a deep history of turning left that dates way back in the country's history, all the way back to the country's founding. You see, back in the last half of the 18th century, the British colonies in America rebelled against the crown. Now, most Americans know their history for the most part, or at least I think they do, and they would know that from 1775 to 1783, there was the American Revolutionary War. But the overall revolution lasted from 1765 to 1784. These 20 years would define the culture of America for the next near quarter of a millennium. This transferred directly into the 1800s American culture, in which America did its best to be anything but Great Britain, even with things like horse racing, the original form of Americans racing. To stand out as different from Great Britain's horse racing culture, Americans changed one crucial cornerstone of the sport. Instead of the British style of going clockwise, the horses instead would race counterclockwise and, in turn left. While an odd link to this core tenet of NASCAR racing, it makes sense. Early U.S. auto racing mimicked horse racing in its inception, as it was one of the few reference points that many had when it came to automobiles, seeing how they were pretty much completely new on this planet. And this is something that we have seen in culture before, in other fields, like music, for instance. In the 1950s, doo-wop progressions of music helped lead down the line to the 4-chord progression that we hear used by modern artists like Bruno Mars, Adele, Imagine Dragons, and so many more, but I just don't care to list them. And this is something that also can fit into scientific theories as well. Scientists have theorized that the human body is more or less attuned towards making turns to the left and in laps that are left-leaning and counterclockwise in movement pattern. This can be seen outside of NASCAR and motorsports in general when it comes to track running. When you look at a track running race, whether it's at the Olympic level or all the way down to the middle school or high school level, they always go counterclockwise in their pattern. Even with runners, for the most part, who have no prior experience, tend to run better this way rather than clockwise. Now, when I looked a little more into this, there was a clear reason for why most people in any kind of racing favor leftward circles rather than rightward circles. The fact that over 90% of the human population is dominant-handed with their right hand. This means that for a runner, the right foot is the one that has more power to it when it comes to making movements. And for a race car driver, it would favor leaning to the left in the car to give the right side more power. The right hand based off of this would be the dominant hand in steering, which is seen in a lot of right-handed drivers. Of course, this isn't going to be a perfect science, which is why you can't be 100% right and prove all of this, but it does have plenty of basis to this. And when you look at all of these different separate smaller reasons together, they all add into one big one. America's rebellious history, as well as Henry Ford's 1908 design of the Model T, are concrete sources right there. You can see them. They are clear reference points in history. You can always go back to them. You can see them in a book. You can see them just in general and how they have progressed and evolved to this point. They gave all of the groundwork for not just NASCAR, but all of American motorsports to have the direction that it would go into the future with. Safety and human nature have reinforced this. And finally, you can never overlook the rich history of tradition for U.S. racing, especially with NASCAR. NASCAR has been known throughout its history as a racing league that does its best to stay old school. If you look at the way that NASCAR's technology has progressed, it is noticeably behind different other racing leagues that are popular in America, like IndyCar or Formula One. So with this all put together, it shouldn't be an eye-roll point that NASCAR races involve left turns, but instead an appreciated piece of the sport, and if you look at it the way I do, an appreciated piece of American history and rebellion. But with that, I will pass this all on to you. Did you think that there was actually a reason or even a history behind NASCAR having left turns? Because I can tell you, I sure as hell didn't. Let me know if you knew or didn't know this stuff in the comments down below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more random videos like this. Because let's be real, this is pretty damn random. And for all of my channel members who support the channel, thank you so much for that support. It never, ever goes unnoticed. So until next time, have a good one.